Welcome to another episode of The Know. Man, glad you guys can join me today. I hope that you're having a great week. And once again, we're just going to go through the same format we have been doing, just answering these simple 5 questions. Today, we are going to cover the book of Ezekiel. So I'm glad you guys can join me. I'm looking forward to diving into this book. Well, the book of Ezekiel, as we begin to look at this, we're going to look at who wrote the book. Well, the book of Ezekiel takes its title from the priest of the same name. So he was just a prophet. He was the son of a man named Buzi, B-U-Z-I. Ezekiel priestly line shines through his prophetic ministry. He often concerned himself with topics such as the temple, the priesthood, the glory of the Lord, and the sacrificial system. Ezekiel tells us that the prophecy began in the 30th year. Scholars usually consider this a reference to Ezekiel's age, making him about the same age as Daniel, who was exiled to Babylon nearly a decade earlier. Like many priests of Israel, Ezekiel was married, but when his wife died during his prophetic ministry, God prevented Ezekiel from warning her in a public setting. So it's kind of interesting that happened to Ezekiel, but some of the things as we look at who wrote the book of Ezekiel, that gives us a little bit of a background of who wrote it, when was it written, and that kind of stuff. Well, let's dive into the next question, which is where are we? Where are we in the timeline of Scripture? Where are we in the timeline of the world? So we know that Ezekiel lived among the Jews. They were exiled to Babylon and settled along the river Chebar, which is kind of in the north side of the town. So less than 100 miles south of Babylon. So when the Babylonians invaded, they brought tens of thousands of Jews back into the villages. So that's somewhere around 597 BC. Ezekiel and the last king of Judah, kind of, it's where we see the timeline, where we see where they're at. So Ezekiel's prophecy began merely 5 years into that time and continued to the prophecy among the people for at least 22 years, because he spoke to the people whom God had exiled due to their continued rebellion against him. So that's kind of how we know the time period and where we are in Scripture. Really, we're following that Babylonian invasion, and we get to see how now the prophets are starting to change what they do. God is beginning to change a few things. So next question, why is Ezekiel important? Why is the book of Ezekiel important? Well, the book of Ezekiel pronounces judgment on both Israel and the surrounding nations, but it also provides a vision of the future kingdom that is to come. So it is pretty cool to kind of tie in some stuff in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Not only does the book present a striking picture of the resurrection and the restoration of God's people, and we find that in Ezekiel 37, it also offers readers a picture of a reconstructed temple in Jerusalem, complete with the return of God's glory. So it's kind of cool as we're looking at that kind of stuff in the book of Ezekiel. To me, that's why the book of Ezekiel is important. It kind of paints this picture of God's glory and restoration that is to come. So what is the big idea? What is the big idea of the book? Well, we know that even though people are exiled, God gives redemption. God shows that there could be restoration. So the big idea of the book to me is that there is restoration. There's a lot of us out in the world that have made some mistakes, that have done different things, that are judging ourselves harsher because of some of our mistakes. Well, the big idea of the book of the Ezekiel kind of shows us, it points us back that because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there can be restoration in our lives. Although it doesn't per se talk about Jesus Christ, we really see that Ezekiel is talking up to the people that have been in exile, that have been trapped by their own rebellion, and he's encouraged them that there can be restoration. So for me, what is the big idea of the book? The idea is just that although there might has to be punishment sometimes for the things that we do, but there can also be restoration. So how do I apply this? How do I apply this book into my life, into what I do every day? Well, to me, Ezekiel's entire prophetic ministry centers around a small exile community, right? But to me, it really speaks to every single Christian out there that lived then and is living today. Man, ask for forgiveness. When you are in the midst of rebellion, when you're in the midst of trouble, when you are in the midst of the world falling apart, it doesn't matter how dark it gets. We need to remember that there is light, that there is a way out, that God is always looking for us. God is always beside us. God is always trying to get us to a place where we are going to be in communion with Him. So it doesn't matter how far you think you've gone. It doesn't matter how far away from God you think you've gone. Maybe you've been living in darkness for so long and you forgot how the light looks like. Well, God is wanting to restore each one of us into the children that we ought to be for His glory. So to me, the book of Ezekiel just reminds us once again to seek out the Lord in those dark times when we feel lost. With that said, if you feel lost today, I want to encourage you, seek out the Lord. You can come join us here at Stone Memorial. We meet every Sunday morning at 10:30 in the morning, and we're just a people that love to worship God passionately. You know, our motto as a church is we are just ordinary people serving extraordinary God. And man, I want to tell you, there is a God that loves you. You are important to Him. You matter. So as you go through your week, I want to encourage you and let you know I'm praying for you, and you are loved by God. And the Lord bless you and keep you. Thank you for joining me today.